Hey guys, just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving here in Canada. And wanted to get some thoughts out. Let me just try to get some good lighting here. So, one of the questions that I want to pose to everyone on the internet that we need to really start thinking about is, would it be moral to do business with Hitler at the time that we knew he was rounding up and gassing the Jews? Now, the reason why I pose that question to everyone today is we need to start thinking of this stuff when we deal with countries today in the modern world. So there's a huge controversy right now with Hong Kong rising up, and the Chinese want to basically take over Hong Kong and run it like another part of China. And if you know Hong Kong's history, you know that they had a deal with the British, and for the longest time they followed British rule, and they had their own constitution style in Hong Kong. That's why Hong Kong followed different rules than the Chinese. And right now, that's why there's the uprising in Hong Kong, because they want to get rid of the Hong Kong way of life. They want to bring in a Chinese extradition bill where people in Hong Kong can be extradited to the mainland China to face prosecution. You see in China the social credit score system, where people, if they're outspoken against the government, if they do anything that the government deems immoral or unfavorable behavior, that it affects their ways in travel, getting flights. They have to use facial recognition to access the internet. We now have come out and seen videos where they are rounding up millions of migrants, the Uyghur population in China, and putting them into re-education camps. And there has also been leaked video footage showing that these re-education camps are nothing less than the modern holocausting of the Jews. Okay, they're rounding these Muslims up. Re-education camps means basically beating and making them submit to their way of life, and if they don't, they just take them out into dirt pits and shoot them. That's what's happening probably to the Uyghurs. Same with Saudi Arabia. We see women's rights eroded in Saudi Arabia. We see Christians being prosecuted in Saudi Arabia and other places in the Middle East. We see Somalia and some of these African nations, and as well in the Middle East, where homosexuality is actually illegal, and people get murdered and killed and imprisoned for having those kind of beliefs and I forget the word I'm trying to say, but you get the point. For people for being gay and stuff like that. So, why I asked the original question: at what point would it be acceptable to do business with Hitler during the Holocaust? Most people in their right minds would be like, we can't do business, because doing business with Hitler during that time would have gave him more money in his war machine to try to inflict the pain that he did across the globe. And also that money would have went to, building more tanks, more ammunition, and all that kind of stuff to enslave the Jewish people as well. And just morally, I like to break everything down to the individual. So let's say you had a neighbor next door. Would you go and do business with your neighbor if you knew he was beating and abusing his wife and children? Probably not. You wouldn't want to morally help that guy out. So I look at business with countries the same way. And I'm really encouraging Donald Trump and leaders of any kind of Western nation and Western values around the world to do what they're doing and standing up to these authoritarian governments, not just China, but as well as these Middle Eastern nations, and not do business with them. Now, one thing that disappointed me with Trump, and here in Canada as well with Justin Trudeau, why we continue to sell arms to the Saudi Arabia and people in the Middle East, is because, Trump and everyone has come out and said that basically it's a lot of jobs for us, and it's a lot of money, and it's a big deal. And I would pose to Trump and any of these Western nations' leaders, would you take that same stance when it came to Hitler? So that's kind of what I wanted you guys to think of when you guys are meeting with your family this Thanksgiving, and we're all thinking of what we're thankful for. Just realize we're thankful for Western values. We're thankful for freedom. We're thankful for free speech. In China, I can't even speak out against my leader. If I talk bad about, any kind of politician in China, you'd be in prison for that. But yet here in Canada, we can call Justin Trudeau a complete idiot and hypocrite for his blackface scandals and stuff like that. And the same way people who may hate Trump, who have differing opinions than myself, they can call him whatever, and endless names. Just pick on any kind of mainstream newspaper or news show like CNN, MSNBC, and all these other places, and just look how bad they talk about the president, Donald Trump. And you know what? I would say to all these news organizations, I may not agree with them, but at least, God damn it, they have the freedom to speak badly against their leaders. Even if I don't agree with them and I think he's a good leader. You couldn't do that in China. So you know what, CNN, before you jump on the bandwagon or all these mainstream medias to support China and throw their support behind these authoritarian regimes and countries, just realize that you wouldn't even be allowed to do what you're doing if you had these leaders rolling over you. So, like I said, I want to finish the video by saying, while you guys are out celebrating Thanksgiving with your family, I know people don't like to talk about politics around the dinner table, but it's rather important. These issues matter. And, we always pick up a history book and we say, how the hell did we allow the Holocaust to happen? Millions of Jews rounded up, put in gas chambers and killed. And we look at that throughout history and see that is such an immoral and evil act. But yet today, we conduct trade deals with China, who is doing similar things to their own population, the weaker people, suppressing their people. Same with Saudi Arabia and Middle Eastern nations and African nations who suppress women's rights and have gross violations of people with the LGBT community. So this is an area in which the right and the left should be able to unify around. Because people on the right, our aspect when it comes to the LGBT community is we don't care what you do with what you do in the bedroom, what you do with your body. It's all about freedom. You have the freedom to make that decision. You're on your own. And people on the left, and people who have that mindset of the social justice, well, they want to stand up for minorities. Well, both of us can agree that minorities and LGBT people or whatever are treated atrociously in some of these other nations and countries. So just think about that. I would just encourage, at what point does it become immoral to do business with your neighbor if your neighbor is committing atrocious acts like enslaving his population, throwing gays off roofs? So I'm going to end the video here and just allow you guys to sit on that and think about it. And I would encourage all Western nations to just cease doing business with countries that don't adhere to freedom and Western values. And that's the best way to make sure freedom spreads around the globe and rises. Because you know what? We see communism and socialism leads to breadlines. It doesn't lead to wealth and prosperity. So when you have a good example, like I always like to use, is North Korea and South Korea. So you have North Korea, which is total dictatorship under Kim Jong-un, total enslavement of his people. They can't have no rights and freedoms. And you got South Korea next door, prosperous, some of the fastest internet speeds in the world. Looks like a metropolis downtown. And why is that? It's because it's freedom. So the best way to encourage freedom throughout the globe is to make sure that we support nations who promote those values and don't do business ones who don't. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and hope you guys think about that.